talking about that.
Yes, and I've seen it too.
Yes, yeah. It's very rare for me to actually, So, yeah, I was so pleased to see it get nominated because Spike Lee deserves it for his career.
Right.
I mean, he's never gotten an award, so he should get it for that. But, it doesn't work that way a lot of the time. But it was really good, really good. So what did you think?
I liked it. It was a good movie. You know who the main actor, you know who that was, right?
Yeah.
Who was it?
Pauletta Washington's son.
Okay.
Did you saw that, right?
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it was.
No, I said John David Washington was being interviewed, and somebody said to him like, "Oh, okay, well, what's it like? So you're the son of Denzel Washington," and he said, "And Pauletta Washington," and he started talking about his mom and
right.
saying like my mother is a great artist, she's a pianist and all that, and so I just thought that was so great.
Nice.
It shows the character. So yeah, I knew who it was. Okay. Pauletta Washington's son. Yeah, he was really good.
Yeah. Once I knew it was him, at certain parts in the movie, he kind of sounded like his dad.
He did.
You noticed that too?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, that's his son.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see his father playing that role. Apparently, the real Smallworth guy had wanted Denzel to play him.
Right.
But it was interesting. It was, certainly timely. And when I read about it, I just. I remembered we were talking about it, so I was like, oh, good, okay, so I'll watch that. So we have, I just really found myself wondering about the guy's family. It was weird how it was just so focused and how it was just him. And I really wanted the girl to dump him. That was bad. That was really creepy. That was just so creepy. The thing about somebody like that is that you never know who they're really loyal to.
Right.
I don't think.
True.
But I was thinking about that, but then I was thinking, well, it's like they're loyal. I just think with somebody like that, the only thing they're really going to be loyal to is being a cop.
Yeah.
Like she was and she was saying like, was he... he was undercover, like, when they met.
Right.
And there's cases like that I've read about. There were a couple in Great Britain where people, like, spend their lives undercover and they get married and have families and all the time with a fake ID, like, reporting back. It's just, it's so creepy.
Wow.
But I was just really hoping they would show his family. Why did this person want to be a cop so bad?
Right.
But, it was really good. The thing is, I really feel like, logically, it's as much the Jewish guy's story as it is him.
Right.
Really, I think the Jewish guy did a lot more. Like, okay, he was on the phone with this guy. He was, like, impersonating him. The other guy was, like, there practically getting killed.
True. But you got to also think about it. He couldn't actually impersonate.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying.
Part.
It's just kind of misleading. Because if it had all been him developing the relationship on the phone, then it really would have been his story. But the fact is, and he wasn't even. It was the Jewish guy that went in and developed a relationship with the people that were actually there. And was risking getting killed.
He was, but I have to differ in certain instances. The Jewish guy was acting like him. The part, I'm not being funny, but of course he can't play a white supremacist because he's not white, so he can't. Yeah. He couldn't infiltrate, so he had to do it that way. But the Jewish guy, or the guy who we had in there playing the white supremacist, was literally it was like he was the producer. He was the actor. He told him how to act.
Yeah.
And,
he
kept it going.
The thing is, but
I kind of liked it.
It was great. It was a great element. I just feel like the Jewish guy deserved as much. He was the one really putting himself in the most physical danger.
He does, but I think it's more about the fact at the time when that happened.
Yeah.
That was new. That was different. Like,
yeah.
and then they're seeing this black guy on the phone.
Yeah.
And he sounds just like him. You
Yeah.
know? And they're like, you know, so you remember that part. He's
Oh,
sitting
yeah.
on the phone talking to everybody. All these, like, what the hell is this dude doing? You know, how's he talking like that?
It was scary.
And it was so easy for him to infiltrate it. I mean, the only thing we had to do is if we could have changed his skin color, he could have infiltrated. They wouldn't have known the difference.
I was scared.
That was just crazy.
I was scared the other cops were going to kill him. Actually,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I was scared. That's like when it was like at the very
Right.
beginning. I was wondering if that was kind of going to be the twist.
Right. And Anna's not going to tell y'all the movie, so you guys need to go see it, please.
Well, people know what happened.
Some didn't. Some people didn't see it. Some people I know they didn't see it.
Okay. Well, so okay. So well, have you seen any of the other films that are on?
You know, I saw this weird movie, but I don't know if it made it to the movies. It was called Pimp.
It's based on the book.
I don't know. I've never read the book. When I saw this movie, I was like, "This is a weird movie."
Oh man, the book's like iconic.
Is it the one with the girl? Is it the same one?
The one with you got.
No,
The Pimp, the one by Iceberg Slim.
No, this is different.
It's different.
It's a different one. I know what you're talking about. This was a movie about a pimp, but a girl who was a pimp.
Oh, okay. No, I don't know that one.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a weird movie that I've seen, but I started seeing it everywhere. I'm like, when did this movie come about? So technically, she was a lesbian. Mm-hmm. She was a girl, and her dad was a pimp.
Yeah, it was like the family
was
business.
Like a hooker or whatever. Yeah. And she grew up and she was a pimp.
Yeah.
But it was in the eyes of a girl. And it was pretty trippy. It was like,
well, wow. It's not like that's unheard of.
No, but it was one of the first movies I've seen like that. You never see movies like that.
Well, you see movies with brothels and stuff like that.
Yeah, but no, she was
like a real. She wasn't a madam, not a.
She wasn't a madam. She was a pimp.
Right. Okay. You know, the one other thing that I was wondering now about people going undercover is it just must be a lot harder because everybody, you know, okay, say if you're going to if somebody comes into your world, into your life and you want to investigate them, you're going to check their social media history and all that. So if somebody, say if that guy had come into the Ku Klux Klan now and tried to infiltrate him, I'm like, okay, well, why don't you, what's your Facebook? What's your Instagram? How come you don't have anything on social media?
Right.
That must get to be harder and harder.
It does. It gets hard.
I mean, there must be ways to fake it, to construct an entire social media history, I think. But yeah, that would be really different. And just the broadness of people's associations now. He was almost undone because somebody remembered him as a cop, and that was, he could still get away with it, because something like that, okay, that's pretty random. Oh no, it wasn't me, you must be mistaken. But now you just look at somebody's Facebook page or whatever and see all those connections.
Right. True.
Yes. Okay. So, speaking of social media, it is currently shut down in Sudan. We're going to move over to the world. There's a social media blackout because of demonstrations, which we've been following, and they are just getting bigger and bigger. And the reason that they're getting bigger, or that people are, Omar al-Bashir has been in power for 30 years, and there have been sanctions against Sudan, but they were lifted in 2017. And that was supposed to make life better for people, but it didn't. And so people are out demonstrating, and there's been a lot of violence, and they're targeting doctors, and it's really fucked up.
Whoa.
Yeah. For the past 30 years. Okay, so there's been corruption, ethnic division, impoverishment, and to the benefit of the networks, and religious oppression. And There's lack of supplies to hospitals, and it's really scary. And one of the things I was reading about was, social media blackout, the sanctions again, and I talked about this before. How at one point there were a whole lot of celebrities really interested in Sudan, and now they're gone, and nobody is really paying any attention whatsoever. So, and people are just out there risking their lives and getting killed, and it's just
Right.
it's just so brave. And I just think about that whenever I see infighting in my own community, in our community. There were issues here in Vallejo with the Women's March, but even worse was Seattle, where I am from, had 3 different women's marches because the ladies couldn't get their shit together and get along with each other. And I'm like, man, I'm sorry, ladies, that's pathetic. And it's like, I don't care. I don't know what the fuck you're supposed to be called these days. But I think there was the Women's March, and it has to do with identity. I mean, it's just people arguing about different interests, and it's just you're just feeding into our enemy. We should be able to unite against our enemies. Our enemies are worse than our own divisions, so far as I'm concerned. And we talked about that a little bit, and how there's been complaints from white women toward black women, wanting them to disown Louis Farrakhan. And we'll say, what's okay? Leave Farrakhan alone, man. He's an old guy. He's an old guy with Parkinson's. And okay, the perfect example. And I talk about stuff like this here. I don't get into it on Facebook. Was the Covington boys, right? Okay, so that's been the latest internet drama. Was a bunch of teenage boys being brats and getting, standing up against, in the face of a Native American elder. And there's all sorts of different videos showing different perspectives. And my attitude is, no matter what, they are teenagers. I believe in rehabilitation. These are adults, shouldn't be bashing teenagers, I believe in giving a chance to Catholic schoolboys, to gangbangers, to, we talked about there's young men from Sudan and Eritrea getting sent over to fight the war in Yemen. And that is one of the reasons that I care so much about peace, is there needs to be opportunity. These young people deserve a chance to have a life. Right. And I think there's a chance. I think that there's a chance. I'm not going to condemn them, and so I am not going to condemn a bunch of little boys in red caps, because you could just see it. There's teenage boys and there's people yelling, and they're just gonna start egging each other on and being obnoxious, because that's what teenage boys do. But I would like to point out to everybody is that you never see any of the Fruit of Islam or the Nation of Islam's young men doing anything like that. They mind their own business, So stop worrying about them and worry about these little Catholic boys, but with compassion. I mean, fuck that. It's just really so short-sighted, and all that's going to happen from people piling on these kids is making them more convinced that they are right. And that's just such a phenomena of our time, with the echo chamber of the internet and of videos being put out there. It just makes people more defensive and more set in their own ways.
Right.
So, yeah. So did you see any clamor about all of that? The latest drama?
Yeah, I seen a little bit of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I seen a little bit of it.
Yeah. I mean, I was seeing one of the kids' faces. People are like superimposing it with Brett Kavanaugh. It's like, wait a minute. Okay, this is a kid, and I'm not going to condemn any kid, even some of the really smart people. I mean, you know, there were just a bunch of young people that were arrested for plotting to bomb something or other, bomb a mosque, and somebody was criticized. They should all, you know, young people should have a chance because of people like Thomas Lubanga, who was because we're getting to the International Criminal Court, which is one of the things that I think is really interesting, and one of the things that's brought up at the International Criminal Court is the crime of using child soldiers. And one of the so the news from the International Criminal Court this past week was Laurent Gbagbo was acquitted, and he is from he's the ex-president of Ivory Coast, and he had been charged with crimes against humanity in connection with the violence following a disputed 2010 election that left 3,000 people dead and 500,000 people displaced. And he was captured in 2011 and by his rivals, and he was the first former head of state to go on trial at the International Criminal Court, and he was acquitted. And so one of the things, along with some of the people that we've talked about before, we talked about Jean-Pierre Bemba from the Democratic Republic of Congo, who was acquitted and went home, and we'll get to the DR Congo election in a little bit, but he went home and people were glad to see him and wanted him to run for office. And Jomo Kenyatta, the president of Kenya, was tried in front of the International Criminal Court and acquitted after violence, because of violence in the elections in his country. So one of the questions is, okay, is the International Criminal Court effective? I mean, it's a long. I mean, these trials take a long time. They're really expensive. So the question is, well, what's the point? Should we keep doing them? And it was pointed. So I was watching some interviews about it, and somebody pointed out, like, well, it's a court. It's not necessarily the point of a court to convict everyone. It doesn't mean that the court's no good if it doesn't convict people. So I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I get the point. I see the point of that, but I don't know, man. These are some pretty bad dudes that go up against the International Criminal Court. And one of the questions is, how well are they doing? Are people more likely to get off because of being a head of state? And, okay, well, Charles Taylor was convicted, and he's the former president of Liberia. Slobodan Milosevic and Radovan Karadzic were from the former Yugoslavia, were convicted, and they were heads of state. Thomas Lubanga was convicted, and he was a warlord from Ivory Coast, I believe. I'll have to check that. It might not be. No, maybe it was Congo, but he was a warlord, and so dominant. And like basically, a lot of the people waiting at the International Criminal Court are warlords. They're not leaders. But okay, it's hard to prosecute leaders, as we know. And okay, so it was also okay. Now this was kind of interesting. One of the things that I was just reading about earlier was, okay, now this goes back to one of my another topic which I kind of like is missionaries being dumb. And okay, so here's a guy in Brazil that went, missionary that went to go disrupt the lives of a group of indigenous people that, indigenous isolated people that are supposed to be left alone. And so there's going to be a discussion. Okay, now there's a movement to charge him with genocide because of the possibility of him wiping out all the people because they don't have immunities. And him basically bringing them his nasty germs and killing them all off.
Wow.
So, and there's certainly, historically, I just think that would be great. They should make the point, okay, historically, we have, that was done to the Native American settlers, deliberately infected them with smallpox. And here this idiot, went to, he went into Brazil, and bothered these people, leave these people alone. If you really want to help, go help people who aren't exotic and exciting and whatever, and leave these guys alone. Because and it's like we talked about the other, the kid that got shot dead by an arrow, who was trying to do the same dumbass thing. I'm like, dude, don't go where you're not wanted. It's sort of like, okay, you know what? It's like if Jesus wants these people to know about him that badly, he can go himself, okay?
Bingo.
Yeah. Okay, so, but part of the problem, it's a big concern right now because we have the new president of Brazil. It's called Jair Bolsonaro, otherwise known as Trump of the tropics, and he just abolished the Ministry of Human Rights. Yeah, just abolished it. Okay, we don't need human rights. That's not important. Trump loves this guy. And so, and he basically combined, he appointed an evangelical preacher as the new minister in charge of indigenous affairs, but her department is in charge not only of indigenous affairs, of women and children and health.
Oh, man.
All of that, okay? When you see that, it just tells you, okay, well, this guy obviously does not think these issues are very important if they want one person to do them all. So that is pretty bad. And Bolsonaro is, he's basically says that he doesn't want to protect the rainforest at all, and that he wants to open it all up. So people going in and disrupting the lives of indigenous people are, an even bigger problem than they would be in the past. So, we are not, things are not that great in Brazil. A year ago, a woman was killed whose name was Marielle Franco, and she was gay, and she was Afro-Brazilian, and so she was a politician that again was from it's called the favelas, like, you know, the Brazilian version of ghettos, and you know, from an indigenous background and gay, and she was shot dead, and so it was just, she was just a very brave, inspiring person, and that was really sad. And after a year, somebody has been arrested for killing her after a year, and they have ties to the son of the president of Brazil. Okay, the guy that like wants to open up the rainforest for business, whatever. And so he is in Davos right now. We'll talk some more about Davos, the World Economic Forum in Davos. And so he was asked about that, and man, you know, yeah, it's like he's just, you know, he's got a little sunlight, just like Trump Jr. and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. So anyway, so young Mr. Bolsonaro is connected to the killer of Marielle Franco, and Brazil's first and only openly gay congressman, I didn't get his name, has announced that he's leaving his job in the country after receiving too many death threats. So that's really sad. He said something interesting. He said something like martyrs aren't heroes, or heroes aren't martyrs. And that's pretty good. I mean, it's a real personal, people have to make a personal choice. And
so, do you agree? Do you think martyrs are heroes, or?
I think it's a great question. No, not necessarily. But I don't know, like, who's a martyr? And then I was thinking, like, okay, well, martyr means I guess it means you sacrifice yourself for a bigger cause. I think some martyrs are heroes, but some aren't.
Like, who would be considered a martyr but not a hero to you?
I don't know. I mean, I don't even...
Technically, okay, I looked it up just to be sure. It says a martyr is a person who kills herself because of religious or other beliefs.
So it's just
who is killed, not killed herself, but
killed.
who is killed.
Yeah.
Because of religious or beliefs. I don't know. To me, it depends. Like you said, that's a good question because that's open-ended.
Yeah. Like
some people's beliefs might not be as, what's the word for it? As respected as others, so to speak. So we can technically say, I don't know, like, let's just say, I don't know, who. Okay,
like, what if, perfect example, that film. What if these guys had been killed by the clown?
The Jewish dude and
yeah.
I think they would have been considered, to me personally, would have been considered martyrs. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, I would consider them martyrs.
Yeah.
Now, let's just put it on the flip side. Now, would you think Trump is a martyr if he got killed over his wall? Think about it. He believes in this wall. And let's just say something happened and there's a big fight and then he gets killed over this wall. Well, there are some people that would probably think he's a martyr.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean,
that's another thing. And to me, that's like, whatever. You know, I don't think it would be considered a martyr to me personally. Okay,
here's the big thing to me about being heroic is making choices. And martyrs don't necessarily make choices.
In some ways they do. They make choices in the belief they want. They're technically, by the definition, they stick to what they believe and they're dying for what they believe in. So their choice is to die for their belief. But
sometimes they're killed because they have the belief. I mean, if if somebody, like, I don't know, I mean, if somebody were to, I mean, I was born Jewish. I mean, if somebody were to kill me for being Jewish, I wouldn't consider myself a martyr.
Yeah, but see, that's what I'm saying. It to me, it depends more on the respect and popularity of your belief.
Yeah.
And how people feel about it. Like if you're doing something big to people, I don't know, like let's just say like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. To some people, that's a really big belief as compared to, like you said, I'm Jewish.
I wonder if you could be.
Or if I'm Baptist and I got killed, or if I'm Catholic and I mean, I just think, I don't know, it depends on the person and the popularity of the belief, to me.
Yeah, because I mean, people could add, I mean.
Because, I mean, there's a lot of people, like you said, that probably die every day for their belief in theory, but some people aren't noticed because, the popularity.
I mean, I don't believe in Judaism.
Yeah.
I mean, so,
yeah.
I mean, but...
I don't know, what's a high-ranking Jewish person? I don't know, what's an example?
Well, we can just, I mean, my association with martyrs, I mean, are the people that I learned about when I was a kid. Tons of them. There was...
So if one of them died...
That
over
were
their belief, I think it's more...
They were considered martyrs for not giving up their faith. There was a story about this guy's, skin getting torn off, because he wouldn't renounce his faith. But, I mean, a lot of people were killed in the Holocaust who weren't, they followed, the one-drop rule, I mean, who weren't even practicing Jews, who just, who were just Jewish the same way I'm Jewish because my mom was,
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, they weren't I'm trying to think because if somebody asked me to get, say if somebody asked me to give up my faith, I don't know. I mean, sure, something like that to me. I mean, I'd lie or what. I mean, or whatever to stay alive. I mean, I wouldn't kill somebody else to keep myself alive. But sure, I'd lie. Right. I mean, I
don't know. I think a martyr, by definition, is anybody. So you would technically be considered, if you died over your belief, you're considered a martyr. But I feel the part that makes it heroic, and I hate to say it like this, is how much you're respected and how big your cause is to people. Because, like you said, there's probably people that die over their beliefs every day, but, if me or you died over our belief compared to, let's say, LeBron James or Steph Curry, of course, Steph Curry and them are going to, you know what I'm saying? They would probably be considered more heroic because they're famous, they're known.
Well, man. Okay. Well, what what about people in the military? I mean,
I've noticed that it doesn't seem the same no more like it used to.
It doesn't.
Do you notice that too?
Well, you talk about our fallen soldiers. I mean,
but it's
service.
Back
service
in the day,
members.
It was a little bit more. When someone came home from the service, people. This is before the 70s, before the Vietnam War. They seemed like they were here, like you were saying, they were considered more heroes. But after the Vietnam War, it seemed like it got kind of to a point now where people don't respect it the same. You don't think so?
No, because because
I know a lot of people that come home from the army, not necessarily. I don't know if they go to war and fight.
But you mean people that come home from Iraq and Afghanistan are not respected?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, not necessarily. I can't say respected, but it's not like it used to be back in the 50s and stuff. When someone would come home, it seemed more. To me, it seemed more heroic than it is now. You don't hear too much about it now.
Vietnam was. Vietnam wasn't, and I think an exception. And I think most decent people learned saw how terribly the Vietnam War veterans were treated and how destructive that was to them, and learned from that. I mean, my understanding is that. I think our culture in general perhaps isn't as respectful of the military, but I mean, certainly when I look at, I mean, the media and not just, and, you know, I mean, there's lots of places where, I don't know, I mean, I just feel like the language we hear now, that people do respect the military now. I mean, not...
Maybe they do. I just don't see it like it used to be kind of me back in the day. It just seemed more respected when I was younger. But as we got older, it doesn't seem the same no more. To me, I don't see it.
Yeah, well, I think it has... I mean, I'm conscious of it here in Vallejo because a lot of people are connected with the military. So there is a lot of respect for the military.
Okay.
And... you know, I just, I mean, in the papers, and there's commemorations and stuff like that. And I talked about this before. I mean, in Seattle, where I'm from, there isn't a lot of I mean, just a lot of people don't have much contact with the military, and it wasn't something I thought about that much until I was older, just because I didn't know people that were in the service. And as I learned more about it, and I don't know, I mean, for me, it's sort of like it's kind of like a manners thing, or it's just it's a respect thing, and it doesn't have to do with what I think. I mean, I just feel like it's what you're supposed to do. It's what you're supposed to do in a in society. So I'm like, yeah, you know, I mean, I say to people, like, you know, I mean, thank you for your service, and I mean, just because I know what people went through. So I don't know. You do hear them called heroes, but I mean, it. You know, I mean, if those guys. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if somebody had gotten killed trying to protect the world from the Ku Klux Klan,
right?
I mean, sure, I'd consider them a hero, but you know, that was a real choice. But you know, I mean, there was just I think that, you know, there was just a police officer killed like a couple weeks ago. You know, she pulled somebody over and he shot her.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, she should certainly be I mean, so if somebody's killed doing their job, you know, I mean, they're taking that was another really good thing about the film, though, is all the talking.
I enjoyed your film. Your film was good, man.
Oh, good.
I have never ever been inside the Empress until now.
Uh-huh.
It's like old school but nice,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's a different kind of theater. You know, it was old school. It was like an old school theater. It looks like they do like opera or something there. The way it's set up. They do
music. They do concerts and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the only theater? Is it like have more than one in there? Or is that the?
There's just that one.
Okay.
But did you see the side room?
I kind of we kind of.
Well, there's a side room with a little bar, and then there's.
We saw that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so do they usually open all that every time?
I'm not sure.
Or do they do that just for you?
No, they usually have it open. They don't always have the side room open. I mean, they do when there's when they have food and stuff, which we did. This was a slight little. Okay, we're talking about You Don't Have to Ride Jim Crow, guys.
You
the
see
film
this?
I brought.
And she's not even mentioning about her show.
Well, because we hadn't gotten to it yet.
Come on.
But I just want to go back to KKKlansman for a minute, because their conversations about the cops, that was a really good part of that film. I mean, just with, you know, him saying, I don't know, it just with him saying, like, you know, you could change, you know, she's saying all cops are bad, and I mean, because it's just the sort of conversation that, I mean, this film took place in the 70s, and it's just one of those conversations that happens so often now, and I don't know, I mean, it was cool the way it was so stylized, and how, I don't know, they made it look, it kind of, I mean, it was a film that took place in the 70s, but they also made it look a little bit like one of the films from that era. With the split screen and all that. And I liked it. I mean, it's just kind of Spike Lee's style. So, yeah, this is the first. So, this is the first radio show that we've had since the Bayard Rustin Symposium. So, yeah, so tell me what you thought.
I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I was kind of shocked, to hear all the stuff that went on. It was pretty interesting how they tried to work a system with riding the buses and stuff like that. It was neat. I liked it.
Now that is fucking heroic.
Yeah, they did that. I mean, I didn't know that they were that. You know what I'm saying? When you watch it, you know what I'm saying? You hear stories about the buses, like Rosa Parks and stuff doing certain things, but I liked how they systematically would plan out how they did it.
And it was 15 years before Rosa Parks.
Yeah, it was 15 years before her. But the way they did it, they planned it out a certain way, and they did a good job. I think they did a good job for what they were doing. Yeah,
that was just so brave. I mean, really taking their lives in their hands.
Yeah.
And
back then, it was no joke. That could have been some big time consequences.
Yeah, and I mean, they chose, choosing to go to jail. I mean, God.
That's what I noticed. That's what they had to do to get it to how to get it to how it is today. Half of them, if they would have did what they did, we'd probably be in bad shape now. You know what I'm saying? It would still be the same way.
Yeah.
So, much love to them, man.
Seriously, those are real here. I mean. And it was so great because the other part of the film, I mean, was these old guys going back and retracing their steps. Weren't they cool? There's this shot of them all going down the escalator, and they were just all so vibrant.
Right. I give it to them. I like how they met up back. You know what I'm saying? They still kept it going, still meeting up. All of them 80 something years old, still dancing and acting crazy, talking crazy to each other. I'm like, them dudes was tough.
Yeah,
real good.
They were definitely seeing, and then they didn't they didn't want everything on camera. Basically, they had.
Well, I can understand that. You gotta have their time.
Yeah.
As with each other,
Yeah.
Totally understand.
Yeah, but that was pretty funny. And so, I mean, so what did you think of the discussion?
You mean at the end?
Yeah.
I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good. I had no problems with it.
Yeah.
I thought it was good. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I hope no one had problems. It was good.
Oh, no. It was
okay.
No, of course, no. No, it was great.
Like Age said, though, it would have been good if people could have brought their kids.
I'm so sick of hearing that.
Why?
Think about it from my perspective. I mean, when you're DJing, to me, we did have a family show. Mm-hmm. We had a family show on Saturday.
Okay.
And that was, it's, for me, when I put on a show, and I love Age. You can say whatever. You can say, and somebody else was,
please say it.
I'm trying to, other people were saying it to me in a critical sort of way, like it was my fault.
That kids didn't come?
Yeah. And
how is that your fault?
People giving me a fucking attitude about it.
Well, I think that's those people. Some people
exactly.
Some people just want something to complain. I just think, what I'm saying, when I was a kid, you know what I'm saying, we had, I don't know, when I was in school, we had more outlets. They would have us watching films and stuff like that as a kid. Well, I think the kids nowadays don't really have
some of them do. Well, so that came up, I published, I had the family screening on Saturday, and there were a few people that brought kids there. For me, as a producer, I don't like the attitude. I want to focus on the people who come, and I want there to be appreciation for the people who are there.
Right.
And so I don't like the conversation. I don't like it being turned over to like, well, why aren't other people here? Because like, okay, this isn't like, nobody knew about that. Hardly anybody knew about this event in the first place.
Right.
It's important for everybody to know about it, and I think that. So I feel like it's just as important for everybody to know about it. And I mean, the film, like, he's getting DVDs made. I mean, it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't really an event for kids. It was an evening at the theater and so somebody brought that up again somebody was really getting on my ass about it, and it started to piss me off because somebody brought it up again on Saturday, and then on Sunday, somebody was saying like, oh, well, okay, well, look around, look at the person next to you, what's missing, there's kids missing here. It's hard to not take that personally because I'm like, okay, I spent a year of my life doing this, and I did the family screening. I reached out to lots of people, like, I contact people, or anybody I knew that does programs with youth and saying, okay, I'd be happy to come speak with you. I contacted parents, and I mean, I think that there is stuff going on at the schools. There's programs for youth. There's people doing stuff and I think they're pretty busy doing their thing.
True, but I liked your program. Your program, I think, would have... I don't know, man. Your program brought me back to when I used to watch those kind of programs as a kid.
And I really wanted, and so...
I mean, they do stuff for kids. I'm not saying they don't, but I think yours is a little special because it's different. It's a little bit...
It is really different, and I'm going to...
A lot of people don't know that,
They don't.
The stuff you're showing, I get it. Little kids, they may see, like, a little bit of Martin Luther King, and they may see some Malcolm X.
And they totally should. I'm not sure. I mean, it's hard for me to. I really think part of the film would kind of drag for kids. Actually, I don't think it's. I mean, it's a great topic. It's fascinating, but I don't know. I think there may very well be films that have more action that would be better for kids. Because a big part of the story is these old dudes going back and retracing their steps and all that. I don't think that's as interesting to kids.
I see how you're saying. You want something more that's interesting, Tony. That you feel
something with a little bit more action.
Right. I don't know. I just think sometimes they need to see, and I know what you're saying, and I get the action part, but I think sometimes they need to see both sides of the stick. The action. They get to see, like, I would have liked them to see, like, these, the older men and women.
Yeah.
The stuff that they did and see how they are now. So they can see, okay, and, sometimes to me it makes you think, like, okay. When I talk bad to this older person, look at these people, look at what they did when they were younger. And look at all the stuff they did. They'll look and they'll be like, okay, you know what?
A couple people did bring kids to the Saturday screening.
And I think, like you said, it may be a little boring to kids, but just if they just saw it, I know how kids are. Everybody knows. When I was a kid once, I would have sat there, but I don't know how everybody else was. But when I was a kid, I would still watch it. I'd sit there and watch. I mean, I'd have been like, yeah, this is cool, but
Yeah. Well, I just think, like, so far as the schools and all that, there's people like age. I think there's a lot of people in there that are doing their thing and have their own ideas and are pretty passionate. So I'm like, I let people know I'm available, but I think people are a lot of people just kind of have their own thing going on. I mean, or just that
I think yours is unique.
It is,
That's the thing. That's the thing about it. That's unique. I mean, I've seen in schools, when they kind of, most schools to me are kind of playing across the line. You like you said, you may see a Malcolm X, a little bit of Malcolm X. You may see something on Martin Luther King, but you don't see Bayard Rustin. Yeah. You don't see, like, the situation really that they did with how they systematically worked the bus system and how they went to jail for rights. Purpose and
that's one of the reasons Age needs to work with me on a graphic novel about Bayard Rustin. Oh, I have. I've talked with him about it.
What did he say?
that he's been. I've talked with him about it before. He's really busy, but especially now that he's seen that film, he knows more like what I'm talking about.
And see, that's what I'm saying. People don't really know that.
So yeah, so it's definitely stuff I want to work on. And like, yeah, I had another, yeah, I mean, so when somebody brought that up on Sunday, by that I mean I was just wiped out. So to me, it's like when somebody is at one of my events, just saying like, it's an attitude of like, well, okay, well, why aren't different people here? So I got up again and was like, hey, I want everybody who's here to know that I appreciate you, and that there's like people that aren't feeling well that make it, or people are busy, and I mean, it's not easy for people. I just feel like everybody should be appreciated for being there, and so for me, it's just not about thinking about who is not there, and I'm just so yeah. I would love to, and I keep I keep in touch with people, but I mean, pretty much the way to do stuff for kids is to go someplace where they already are, where they're comfortable, and present it there, and that's the sort of thing that I've offered to do, and now Hakeem has finally, city council member, Mr. Brown, has seen the show now, and he does a lot of stuff with kids, and so I talked with him about doing a screening in May. So, I mean, it's also just for me, like, I mean, it was amazing. It was so hard to try and get this off the ground and trying to explain to people why this was so cool. And why, I mean, it was, I saw the film. Well, see, I'm really interested in it. So I had wanted to see it before. It wasn't even, I mean, I booked it before I'd even seen it, because I'd been trying to track it down. I knew it was like part of my topic. But then Steve Dunsky, Robin Washington sent Steve a copy to look at it. Because Steve had to see it before he could agree to screen it. And so it was just them, and then I finally let somebody who was volunteering with me watch it to try and like get across to him why I was so enthusiastic and why I was trying to like drum up support for this. But yeah, it was hard because it's something that not many people know about, so it was really hard to try and publicize and try and get people involved. And so
well, that's how everything starts.
Exactly. And so now that more people have seen it, it's really
the thing is you have to keep it going.
Well, yeah, we're looking at doing something in May, and
have you thought about maybe doing that like at least once or twice out the year?
Well, I'm looking at doing it in May, yeah.
Okay. But I mean like constantly. Like every year.
Oh, the Bayard Rustin Symposium?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I did it I want to do it every year. I did it in 2018, and it was smaller, and then I did this one in 2019.
Okay.
And yeah, even though I think I kind of just feel like it's such a great film, I may just kind of want to do the same thing.
I think you should.
Yeah.
If you do that in the Empress, let me know. I know you said you're going to do it again in May.
Well, no, at the Naval Historical Museum.
Let me know when you're going to do it again in the Empress. So I'm going to let a lot of that. I mean, I know a lot of people would like to see that.
Well, that would be next year.
Okay.
In January, because now that people have seen it,
right.
The question with that would be the question to figure out closer to then would be if everybody, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back in just a few minutes.